They can't teach Islam in the schools, so why be concerned about it? Well, here's why. One of the things that you will see if you poke around on the internet, in fact, if you poke around on the official websites of these schools, and I can give you some of them at the end of this, they talk about these competitions, these after-school competitions. What these are they are students in these schools who participate in what they call the Turkish Olympics. Right? They learn, the schools offer 2 languages, Spanish and Turkish. That's it. And if you participate in the Turkish Olympics and you finish in the top 5 or 10, you get an all-expense-paid trip to Turkey, you and your family. Now they target inner-city kids, right? These are kids who probably have never been to Miami, let alone to Turkey. So the idea of having your whole family go over there and get hosted by a family with kids in a Gulen school in Turkey is pretty appealing. And it is all over the internet. I mean, you're seeing Hispanic kids, black kids, white kids, singing Turkish songs, reciting Turkish poetry, in stadiums that hold 20,000, 30,000 people in Turkey. Right? Now, let's start adding up the numbers. You have, their goal is to have, and again, I'm getting this from some of their literature, their goal is to have 600 charter schools in the United States within the next 10 years.
Is every charter school, has he built all the charter schools?
No. So they are now the largest collection of charter schools, right? But there are many charter schools that have nothing to do with the Gulen movement. In fact, we have a fellow in Houston who's a Greek guy who runs 5 charter schools in the greater Houston area, and I mean he thinks Gulen is the devil. I mean it is just, they are, people in education are absolutely terrified of this guy. Okay, now where is the fear here? Well, until recently, these schools and what they do is they bring over, and you saw this in terms of the visas, where they bring over Turkish teachers to teach English. Okay, we have people like this man that you saw in the video who can barely speak a lick of English teaching English in these schools, and the reason they are doing this, they get, if you add up the number of visas, work visas, that are given to Gulen-related schools, they are more than 3 times as much than the work visas for Hewlett-Packard, Apple Computer, IBM. These are technology companies, right, where you have all kinds of engineers in India. And there's 3 times as many going to the Gulen schools. And so I believe it really is true that they are coming here to basically bolster up the ranks and get these people integrated into the government. Let me kind of take it aside here for a second and give you one personal experience that I had with this. So one of the things that we did with the Archons was we went to state legislatures across the country to get them to pass a resolution, a non-binding resolution, in support of religious freedom and the ecumenical patriarchy, the leader of our church. Right? And so there were a handful of us in Texas that the most powerful person in Texas is the lieutenant governor, not the governor, because the lieutenant governor controls the agenda for the House. And they get to decide whether you get your bill up or not. And our legislature meets every other year. So we made an appointment with the lieutenant governor, David Dewhurst. And we sat across from him, and we explained to him who the ecumenical patriarch was. We showed him the resolution, and it was all this really benevolent, kind language that 30 other states have passed. And he looked us right in the eye, and he says, "You have my word. I'm going to support this. This is wonderful. He's a wonderful human being. I know all about him. He's a very kind man. I'm a strong supporter of Christian values, and we are going to back this up." Okay? within 30 days of that meeting, we find out that 40% of our state legislatures have been offered all expense paid trips to Turkey for them and their spouse for 10 days. The staffers of our state legislatures, which are the people that do all the work, are given these very lavish parties. And the person who was going to sponsor our bill, the state representative who was going to sponsor our bill, withdraws it, and they pass a bill honoring Fethullah Gulen. Okay? And David Dewhurst is on the steps. Now, he lost for governor, by the way. He's on the steps of the Capitol, okay, with Gulenists, talking about what a visionary this guy is, and what a wonderful man. Okay, we then did some research and found out he received an incredible. He was running for governor, and he lost. But he received an incredible amount of money from all of these foundations with all these benevolent names that are all Turkish. Okay? So, of course, Greeks are a little more determined than the Turks. So we did not take it lightly. So we contacted all the parishes in Texas, let them know what was going on. And we actually wrote the letter for them. We gave them 3 different versions of the letter to have them write to their state representative. And they received more letters in 45 days, I think, than anything. I think we got like 7,000 letters in. And so we ended up getting the resolution passed the next time around. But this is a very, very insidious force that is kind of working against not just the Orthodox Church, but against Christianity in general. Now, I'm going to get back to the charter schools in just a second, because some of the numbers are absolutely staggering. And let me talk now, I'm going to switch gears and talk about this organization called the Turkish Coalition of America. This is something that is directly funded by the Turkish government. And the one thing that the Turks do is there are literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of nonprofit organizations that they set up with names like the Raindrop Foundation or the Harmony Foundation or the Sapphire Foundation. I mean, no indication that they are affiliated with a foreign country. And part of the reason that they set these up is because when members of Congress are being offered these lavish trips to Turkey, somebody got the idea that, hey, there's something wrong with this. And so they passed this legislation saying it is illegal for a foreign state to pay the expenses of an elected representative of the United States to go to a foreign country. I mean, that's a good law. It makes a lot of sense, right? They're supposed to be watching our interests, not some other foreign country. Well, this new legislation comes in, it says, exception, you can accept money from a nonprofit foundation. And guess what? That's where all the money starts coming in from, right? So this Turkish Coalition of America, let me just show you their website. Now this is, the reason I'm going to show you this is because part of what you're about to see is what is being taught in some of these Gulen schools, okay? Now here it is. So there's our capital, right? Looks very nice. And this is an organization that stays in very close contact with members of the House. And they have a majority of the House of Representatives are members of this Turkey caucus. The chairman of the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, which is a very powerful committee in Congress, is always a member of this. And through these foundations, they raise lots and lots of money. So here is, for example, this is right after the election, and you'll see that they talk about, I don't know if you can't see this, I know, but they talk about which state representative was elected, who was not elected. They're thanking congratulations to members who won re-election and officially took their place in the 114th Congress. And here's my favorite part. All of these foundations and Turkish organizations, they all employ white people as their heads so that nothing looks odd. You saw in the 60 Minutes piece, right? I mean, look at this. They got the president of the Turkish coalition is a guy named Lincoln McCurdy. And it sounds like something out of Leave It to Beaver, right? And they do this so that they disarm you, because most people don't react well to people with accents. So this Lincoln McCurdy was a very senior guy in the State Department. Very senior. Lots of connections in Washington. So what do? Well, what is their purpose? About us. So there's Lincoln McCurdy, and let me see. There's a page. Oh, here we go. What is the purpose of this organization? It is to, among other things, protect the character and ensure a realistic portrayal of Turkey and Turkish Americans in the media and the arts. Right? And so one of the things that they have here in doing this, and identify and recognize the achievements of Turkish Americans in academia, it all sounds very benevolent. So let's go to issues. Okay? And this includes more than a third of the U.S. House of Representatives. It includes significant amounts of private businesses, including companies like Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin is based in Dallas. They were forcefully against the Ecumenical Patriarch Resolution. We found out they lobbied very hard against this. Why? Because Turkey buys a lot of jets from Lockheed Martin for the military. This is an American company, right? So what are the issues? Well, here are some of the issues. So let's pull up Turkish history. Let's pull up the Greek War of Independence and its toll on the Turks. Okay? I don't know if you can read this, but some of this is funny if we were in a different setting. Let me go to the bottom. Okay. The genocidal orgy in the Peloponnese ended only when there were no more Turks to kill. This so-called Greek War of Independence was hardly a war at all, but mostly a series of opportunistic massacres against defenseless civilians, women, and children who were slaughtered because of their ethnicity and religion. You know that game the little kids play, I know you are, but what am I? That sounds like what we said, right? So listen to this. After the massacre of the Peloponnese, similar skirmishes were started by the Greeks in Crete, Cyprus, Samos, Thessaly, Macedonia, and Epirus. Now, the ancient Greeks no longer exist. The place of Solon, Socrates, and Demosthenes have been taken by blind ignorance. The logical laws of Athens have been replaced by barbarism. Earlier up here, they blame the church as being supportive of genocide. Let me find it. Yeah, there you go. The patriotic cry of the revolution, proclaimed by the Greek Archbishop Germanos, who, by the way, the Turks hung, right? They hung him from the patriarchal gates after the War of Independence started.
What's TCA?
Okay, so this website is pretty incredible. It's TCA. Just type in Turkish Coalition of America, you'll find it. And look, I could spend hours talking about what's on this website, but you ought to see what they say about the Armenians. You ought to see what they say about the Kurds. Okay, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff in here about us, about the Greeks, and what happened. And these are the people in connection with Gulag who are coming over here to teach our kids, tens of thousands of our kids in these charter schools, among other things, history. Okay? Now the reality is, if you say it enough, if you say it over and over and over, the lie becomes the truth, and the truth becomes the lie, right? I mean, it's absolutely baffling to me that the first genocide of the 20th century, the genocide that inspired Hitler to do what he did to the Jews and the Gypsies, which was the Armenian genocide, failed like a lead balloon in Congress. And why is that? Because many of them are members of this Turkish coalition, and they receive, and you have people like Dick Gephardt, who is I don't know if you remember him, but he ran for president. This was when he was a senator, and this was one of the really good guys in the Senate. And he was a forceful champion of the Armenian genocide resolution. I mean, this guy was as good as a guy, okay? And whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I mean, he was a true human rights advocate. And he now works for the Turks, okay? He is one of the lead lobbyists for Turkey. And he led the campaign. When it came up again, he led the campaign against the Armenian genocide. All right?